If we use Tailwind, it's because we don't want to write CSS. And of course, Tailwind provides a solution for us to deal with spacing and sizes. Let's start with padding. In Tailwind CSS, we got classes that help us to deal with padding. And those classes starts by P. P for padding. Then we've got a minus and we've got a number exactly with the sizes we saw before. The number is representing actually the size you want to select. And here we got some example of p minus 0, which represent a padding of 0. But before we talk about padding, it's better to give a definition. Padding is it's the space inside an element between this element and its border. And it's really important to understand the difference between padding and margin. Padding concerns space inside the element, while margin concerns space outside the element. So if you want to put some space inside an element, you are going to use padding. And Tailwind CSS provide to us many classes that we can use to create padding. But sometimes you want to put padding only on the left, only on the right, on top, or on the bottom. With Tailwind CSS, we can deal with that because it provides classes for top, right, bottom, or left. And here I'm going to zoom a bit. Here we got example. When you want to put a padding top, you use PT0. When you want to use padding right, you use PR0, PB for bottom, PL, etc., etc. So I got my app that is running there, and I just got a hello there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a new class, and I'm going to put a background. Okay, this background will be BG red, and I don't think that BG red will work because I will have to put, of course, the weight of the color. And when I update, there we go. I got my element here that is in red. I'm going to put text white and a bit of bold on the font. And when I update, there we go, I got my text there. So if I want to put padding inside this red line there, what I just have to do is to type P minus, and here let's try with P minus 1. And what this class is going to do is to add some space everywhere inside my red box. And when I pass my mouse on it, and here on the selector that we got there, we see that we have padding inside the red box. So we see that 1 corresponds to 4. So let's get back in the official documentation and let's go down to P1. And we see here that we've got the description P1 correspond to 4 pixels. If I get to another number, like let's say that P4, for instance, and I update, look at that. Now we got more space. Okay, so all of this is a question on what space do you want to put on all your box this way. All right, so now let's see that. So we got 16 pixels right now everywhere, and if you pass your mouse there, you see that inside my red box I got this orange square, okay? Actually, this orange big border, which represent the padding, sorry. And I have this inside this part that is not concerned by the padding, which contains hello. Let's say that now I just want to have, okay, padding only on the left. What I would do is to put here, just after the P and before the minus, L. L for left. It's really easy to understand. And when I get back and I update, we see that now my padding has been added only here on the left. It would be the same for the right. For the right, I would put a R, PR4. And here, we're not going to see a big difference there. But if I put my mouse there, we see that we got on the top, if you see it, on the top right, this little square orange that shows that we got 16 pixels of padding. Now, for the top, it's the same. It's a T. Okay, so I'm going to update, and there we go. I got 4, actually 4, it's the unit, but it's 16 pixel. I got 6 pixel on the top, and B, okay, B for bottom. And there we go. I got also here 16 pixel on the bottom. For the margin, it's going to work exactly the same. We will have just instead M, then we will have T for top, B for bottom, etc., etc. Now, let's say that we want to have just the padding on top and bottom and not on left and right. What we're going to use is Y. Y for the axis Y, simply. So when I'm going to update, we see there that I got just the padding on top and padding on the bottom. For not vertical but horizontal, I'm going to use X. And when I update there, I got my padding on the left and on the right. It's really easy to understand, all right? It's really, really easy. And here on the official documentation, you get, of course, all the sizes that are available. And those sizes of padding, we will see it later in this lesson, we will be able to change them. Of course, we will be able to customize them. Now that we saw the padding, we have to see the margin. And for the margin, it's exactly the same. The only difference is that actually it's going to be an M on the top of it, on the start of it, sorry. So if I put M4 there, what I'm going to have is a space outside. And of course, outside of my box, I'm not into a background red 500, I think I put. Yes, I don't get the color background red 500. So I put actually, and here we're gonna see it again, as you see, margin around my box. So let's just get down there and let's create a new div. And actually what we're gonna do is to put this box there. So box, okay, box with margin, all right? And I'm going to save this. Then down there, I'm going to just to put, to see difference, box with padding, okay? And one is going to be blue, the box with margin, and the padding will be red. So I'm going to update, and there we go. We see the difference. The margin, it's outside of your box, and the padding is there. And of course, it's exactly the same. So if I want to put a margin on top and on bottom only, and not on the left, on the right, I put Y. Otherwise, I put X. So I'm going to update. I got X there. Okay, and of course, if I just want to have margin on the bottom, which happens often with titles, I put, okay, MB, or otherwise I could put MT, MR, M left, etc., etc. Let's take an example right now. Let's say that instead of having a div, we would have an H1, so this is my title, okay, and down there I will have a paragraph. This is my paragraph, all right? So there I would remove this M, I would remove this background because it's useless, and exactly the same for the text Y, just gonna let my font bold. Okay, so I go down. Here we see that I got a title, and I'm going maybe to put a bit of 8 on this title, so text to XL. What I would like to have is more space, okay, between those two elements. Even if the line 8 is already enough, okay, I already have an enough line 8. But if I want to put some space, what I could use is padding. But padding here, and let's take that on a padding bottom, we would have a 4 value, we will add 4 in terms of unit. There we go. The thing is that here, I'm putting space inside as green, inside my title. And you can do it, but it would be better if instead of a padding inside, we would put instead a margin bottom of 4, okay? Margin, it's better because you push from the outside. So for whatever reason, you would like to have your entire title on the 8 like this. And yeah, there we go. But here we see that we got space outside, but it's too much. We got too much space. So this is another thing with spacing. You got to be careful because sometimes you're going to use some values and you will see that your design is disproportionate, which means that all the sizes are not really coherent. There will be no logic if you use two different sizes everywhere for a lot of elements. Also, you can use negative values. So here we've got an example, and I'm just going to copy paste this example because we got it in here. All right, so I got those two elements there. I got one square, which is up there, and then I got this other div down there. And what I can do also is using negative, okay, negative values. And actually we're going to change the color because here it's going to be more clear. Let's say that we got a blue one and down there we got a red one. If I want it to be inside of it, what I can do is to play on the sizes, okay? So here I would do minus in top of the value I want to put, either padding or margin. And here I'm going to put margin, and let's say that I want it to be on the top. So on top, I want to have a margin negative top. And when I get back and I update, suddenly my div, which is supposed to be just after the first div, is entering the first div because I used a negative margin. So sometimes you may need to have negative value. You can use this minus before the classes that you are going to use to move this element. When we talk about spacing, of course, we talk also about space between elements. And with Tailwind, we can use also classes related to space between. Here we've got some boxes. So I created two boxes with a special height and a special width. And as you see, it's exactly like margin and padding. Tailwind is providing to us sizes on width and height. So basically, when I go down there in sizing, we see that when I type W0, it gives a width of W0 pixel. When we talk about sizing, of course, we talk about width and height. And exactly like we saw on padding and margin, you can give sizes, height, width, to elements. When I go on width, on the official documentation, I see that Tailwind is providing to us several classes that works on exactly the same model as the margin and padding. And what I created already is a width 16, height 16, BG Red 500 box. And I created another one just down there. And here we've got two squares. Those two squares are created by those width. And as you see, I put width 16, which correspond to 64 pixels. And those values are basics values provided by Tailwind. Here, down there, we see that we can have also several values that goes up differently from the number that you are going to path. Those are called fixed width. But what you have also is percentage width. And basically, those percentage width, they work with flex. If you want to know more, please refer to my video using flex with Tailwind. So what I can do, I got those two boxes there. And if I type class name, and here I'm going to put flex, those two boxes will come next to each other, okay? And let's say that I want to give them a width, and I want to give them a width that will take half of the screen. And instead of having 16 there, what I can say to them, please take half of it, 1/2. And when I update, there we go. We see that my two divs, okay, are taking 50% each of the space of the current div on Flex. But actually, I could have different behavior. Let's take, for example, this one. Let's say that on 5 columns, I would have here 2 on 5. And down there, of course, the latest would have what? 3 columns, because the difference between 2 and 5 here is 3. So I would have here a lower column than this one. So let's say that here is going to be a sidebar, and here it's to be main content, which happens most of the time. Back into my application, when I update, there we go. I got a sidebar, which is very big because it's 2 of 5 columns. Actually, what I would need to have is instead let's say 1 of 5 column. But what's going to happen here is that we are missing a column there. So don't make the mistake, okay, here, to miss one space, because Tailwind will wait for another one. Here we are supposed to have 4 on 5. And now let's see when we move our content. As you see on the responsive side, we have columns that are adapting themselves. So sometimes that can be a problem because in the sidebar you will have content and this content will maybe overflow. Let's talk now about the 8. It's exactly the same. So Tailwind is providing to us basic 8 that we can use, and most of the time it's really useful. So here we already used a height of 16, okay? But look, we can have other 8 that we can use that are proportionally bigger or not. Of course, we have width and 8, but we also have min width. So you can play with min width. You got several classes that can be applied to the content. So sometimes you would like to have a min width of the content. So here, let's say that we would have a min width min content. So what I would do there, instead of having this, I would have min width, there we go. And we see that the sidebar took the size actually of its collocating div. So here, if I lower the size of the 8 actually, sorry, of my main content, what is going to happen is that my sidebar is going to stick to the 8 of my content. So you use for that min with min, which says that it wants to heritate from the min content of its parent element. It's exactly the same for max width. The main difference is that on max width, you have several other classes, okay, that just says that we want to have, for instance, max width full. So the big content there will take only, okay, the maximum width of the current browser. So let's take an example, and let's say that here our main content, we want to put a margin there, and maybe this margin, we're going to give it a big margin, okay, 72. So I'm going to save, and when I update, we see that I got a big margin. And if I remove my width full and I just put my flex there and I save, okay. Let's take an example. We have our sidebar and our main content there. And let's say that we want to put a max width, and this one is going to be, here we've got some example, XL, LG, MD, whatever. I'm going to put XL, and here suddenly what we're going to see is that my content, okay, has been reduced to XL. Otherwise, other classes that we can use is max with min, max with the current attribute of CSS with max with min content, max content, fit content. Otherwise, we see down there that we have also classes with actually media queries and on different screens that we can have. Here we've got our sidebar, our main content, and we've got this big white background there. And let's say that we would like to have actually the sidebar, okay, on the full 8 actually, and the main content the same. What we could use is min 8 screen, which will refer actually to 100 VH. So let's say that we are going to take min H screen, okay, and we want to put it just on the sidebar. What I can do, so I'm going to remove this, min H screen, okay, will say that actually we want to take the full 8 for the sidebar. And sometimes you will need to do that. But of course, what we could do also is to actually just put that on the parent. So when I put that on the parent, here we don't see any difference because I got a 8 on my main content there. So I'm going to remove this, get back, and there we go. Now, all the children of my parent that got min 8 screen are full screen by default. And it's also working, of course, if you want to apply min 8 with min content, max content, fit content, on min 8 min exactly with the max value. One of the most interesting characteristic of spacing and sizing inside Tailwind CSS comes now. It's about space between elements. What you would do if you would like to have space between sidebar and main content is basically putting margin or the padding. It depends on how you would do it. Actually, you are not obliged. Tailwind CSS is providing to us space between classes that help us to create space between elements, and it's doing it in a smart way. When we go down, we got an example here. We can use space minus X. It reminds you the horizontal spacing that we can do with padding and margin, and 4 as a value. So if I do that on my actual app, I should write up there next to flex space minus X, and let's put 4. And let's see what is going to happen to our children's sidebar and main content. Actually, we got space that has been created. And it has been created in a smart way, which means that it's going to be equally put between the two sides, all right? And that's the beauty of it. With flex, you use space between. So we've got other example. Just try to use space Y8 here as an example. So now we worked horizontally, we want to work vertically. So if I put space Y4, we have only this one that is applied. And why do we have only this one which is applied? It's because main content is supposed to be the second element. So if I put a flex call there and I want my two elements being on top of each other, we've got a different behavior, but we see that space has been put in here. So you will ask to me, what is the difference between margin and or padding and this space? Actually, it's margin here. What is the difference? Visually, there is no difference. However, you don't want to have margin bottom, margin top everywhere all the time, especially between elements like this, columns and main content, etc. So with flex, you are using space between to create spaces between elements. About the customization, it's really easy to understand. On my Next.js application, I got several titles, and those titles have different margin class there on the bottom. And it's going to order of matters for 3, 2, 1 there. And I see that my MB4 is at 1 rem. And let's say that I would like to actually lower this size. What I can do is to go on my tailwind.config.js, and in extend I can create a margin entrance. So here I'm going to remove this font size, I'm going to put the margin, and let's say that now what I want to have is that MB4, okay, MB4 would be actually 20 pixels. So I'm going to save, get back, and when I update, we clearly see that the size of my margin changed. And here we've got 20 pixels instead of 1 rem. You would do exactly the same for every size, and you see that it's also working for arbitrary values that we can put between brackets. So here on every of my size, I would lower the value every time. So here it's going to be 18 pixels for actually 3, okay? Then for 2, it would be 16, and for 1, it would be by default 14. So when I get back there and I update, after the update, we can check that every size of the margin there will be applied from my Tailwind configuration. And you can also do it for all the extended sizing classes. Spacing and sizing are very important when you code a front-end application, and Tailwind is killing it. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and see you next time.